Welcome to the Prison to Promise podcast, where we amplify stories of transformation, resilience, and purpose beyond incarceration. I'm your host, Dr. Waleed, educator, author, and advocate, committed to sharing the conversations that inspire change and highlight the power of lived experience. On this episode, I'm honored to sit down with good brother JeffWalker, Executive Director of Wilkes Recovery Revolution, Incorporated. Jeff's journey is one of remarkable transformation from the struggles of addiction and incarceration to becoming a leader in community recovery and reentry advocacy. Together, we dive into what it really means to reclaim your life, rebuild your community, and revolutionize recovery. This conversation is raw, it's real, and it reminds us that no one is beyond redemption, not if we have the courage to heal and the heart to help others do the same. Now let's go. Right on, because this already feels organic, so I want to capture every bit of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was supposed to come to y'all ribbon cutting, what was it, last week?
Last Friday. Yeah.
Yeah, but things fell through, so I didn't get a chance to make it. My wife and I were gonna come up there.
Yeah. So, man, it turned out being 130 people showed up, which was ended up being the biggest ribbon cutting in this county there's ever been.
Wow, man, that's impressive.
Yeah. And so we had a lot of support. It went well.
Yeah. So how about we just because we've already started. I know who you are, but our listeners don't know who you are. And so maybe we could back up a little bit. And first, I just want to say again, thanks, man, for joining me on the podcast platform. And ask you maybe to just introduce folks to yourself and maybe talk a little bit about in detail what you and I were just talking about.
Okay. Sure. Honored and privileged to be here. Thank you, Dr. Waleed, for having me. My name is Jeff Walker. I am Director of Programs at a nonprofit here in Wilkes County called Wilkes Recovery Revolution. One of the biggest things we just did was open up very first treatment center here in Wilkes County called Cameron Ridge Treatment Center. It's SACOT, which is Substance Abuse Comprehensive Outpatient Treatment. So that's kind of the phase 2 of that program. Phase 1 was IOP, intense outpatient, serving the underserved population for our peer supports and our team, getting somebody into affordable treatment or someone that has Medicaid. A bed wait could be 2 to 3 weeks. Now, a person got private insurance, and we can get you into treatment in about a couple hours. But, so Wilkes Recovery Revolution has always served the underserved population, and that's what we'll continue to do. And so we will be accepting the Medicaid. We will accept private insurance too. But what I will say is we got 19 people in our IOP, and every one of them currently have Medicaid. There is only one other option here in this county for IOP, and there haven't been no other treatment services. So we had a grand opening last Friday, September the 5th, and we had 130 people to show up. You know what I mean? It was pretty cool. That was the biggest amount of people that what I was told from our Chamber of Commerce at a ribbon cutting ever in Wilkes County. So
yeah, that's impressive, man.
Pretty big event, man.
Yeah, man, that's dope, man. And so, again, congratulations on the ribbon cutting. Congratulations on the launch of the programs. But I have to take it hip hop just for a minute, because as you talked about how, the wait time for someone is about 2 to 3 weeks, but, if they have Medicaid, it's just a couple of hours. And so it made me think about Wu-Tang Clan, cash rules everything around me, cream, get the money. And it's unfortunate, man, that, if you don't have the financial resources, you can't necessarily move up or move at a pace that keeps up with your needs, I guess. You know what I'm saying? So you always get left behind and become marginalized. And so
for sure,
that hits me. But Can you talk a little bit, man, about your own personal journey and what led you to doing the work at Wilkes Recovery Revolution?
You know what, man? I am an individual in recovery myself. I have lived experience. I'm also a formerly incarcerated person. Spent most of my adult life in and out of jails and out of prison. I grew up in a childhood of separated household that my family faced a lot of trauma when I was young. My sister died at the age of 6. My mother and father was together at that time. Shortly after that, they separated. My father, I end up becoming much like my father, we'll put it that way. Like he was a wild man, womanizer, loved to get down, so to speak. And so it didn't work out. We grew up on a chicken farm. We're a very rural community here, and so chicken farming is a thing. And it was my father's, and so when they split up, like we was poor, very poor. And so I didn't realize later on in life to how my childhood experience would affect me as an adult and the trauma that I went through. Um, I've got a birthmark on my left arm.
Yeah.
It's red. I was born that way. Um, I thank God for it today, but it caused me a lot of bullying when I was young in elementary school and things like that. I got picked on a lot. I couldn't ever get in where I fit in,
Hmm.
and and uh, and so eventually I got tired of being bullied, and I started fighting back, and that developed some aggressive behavior that would lead on to an adulthood, and all that trauma and feeling less than and like you don't fit in carried with me until adult. And then ultimately, I got in to a crowd of people and doing drugs and selling drugs to where I felt like I fit in. And ultimately, doing those things and breaking the law, and that led me to in and out of jails and prison. That's kind of what brought me to this work. I caused a lot of harm to the community I live in, really not trying to do that intentionally back then, but I was doing it. And so I wanted to try to give back to this community because I love my community. And I want to try to give back. And the best way I know how to do that is to help people like myself
Right
uh,
on.
thrive in life.
Right on. That's dope, man. And what really stands out for me, Jeff, is that so many of us who've been to prison and jail and who've um been victims of addiction, we all have very similar stories, stories of poverty, stories of single parenthood, stories of trauma. And many of us who do this work also have those very same motivations. We've caused harm and we want to give back to try to bring about some good karma, really, man. That's dope. So thanks for sharing that for our listeners. And I'm sure somebody gonna hear your story and say, wow, that's my story, my same story. But tell me this, man, like after going through, your years of addiction and incarceration, et cetera, and all the ish that came with it and uncovering your trauma, like what were some of the, I don't know, maybe the transitional or pivotal moments that shifted your mindset or your life trajectory? When did you say, man, I got to clean up and get this shit right?
And it was my second stint in prison. Every time I went to jail, I get out and go back doing the same thing. That vicious cycle that everybody talks about. First time I went to prison, I was wilding out, staying in the hole, pretty much living in there like I was living out here. And my second time I went, I was doing the same thing for a while. And this guy that was doing life without the possibility of parole had a big impact on my life. And and I always share this story because I didn't know him. At that time, he'd been incarcerated for like 35 years. And he called me out one day in the day room and he's like, "What you gonna do?" And for us being in prison, that's a tough conversation to have. Like, and he told me, he said, I said, "What do you mean, man?" He said, "I've been watching you." Well, that's concerning.
Hmm.
And
You
so I'm
watching me.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
watching me. I said, "Man, mind your own business." But he starts watching me, so I started watching him. You know how it is. And,
Yeah.
and and what I noticed, man, is that dude had a freedom about himself and a happy and a joy about himself on the yard, on the weight pile, and like he wasn't never getting out. And I knew that much about him, right? Uh, and so I went up to him and I'm like, "Man, why'd you come to me like that?" And he said, "I see what you're doing. I see the moves you're making." And he said some simple words to me. And once he said it, I'm like, huh. He said, "You don't change in here, and you ain't gonna change out there."
Hmm.
And and so that I resonated with that immediately. And I was doing some things in there. And I had a detox while I was incarcerated off some things. And I started hanging out with this man. And I wanted that freedom and that happiness that he had. To this day, he's probably still one of the most happy and joyful persons I've ever met. Knew he wasn't never getting out. And, he had me do some things like grief. Grief, Dr. Waleed, is a huge part of my story, man. I told you I lost my sister. I lost my mother. I lost my father. I lost multiple friends. And I didn't know how to process that. You know what I mean? I used substances to cover it up.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't know how to process that grief. And so he had me doing some things, man, that was out of my comfort zone, really,
Yeah.
that I thought was ridiculous, but it worked.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote a letter to my dead mother. I wrote a letter to my dead father. You know what I mean? I did the best I could while I was behind the gate, processing this stuff that had been buried in me for 20 years.
Yeah,
And,
man.
and a little bit at a time, that stuff starts coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And I start becoming free. And I took it from there. That man, I don't even know if he knows it. You know what I mean? I'm grateful for him. But he was the one that made that huge impact. And 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 after that, he said, you'll be tested in here. You know what I mean? I couldn't ever get my minimum custody because I was wilding out. 8 months after me and him start hanging. And, of course, we went to some meetings while we was in there, went to some church services and things like that too. Anything to better myself, I was doing. Uh, I got my honor grade, I got my greens, and I went to a new camp. And he was right. I was tested on that camp and I resisted. And so my mother was a beautiful woman and she had a heart of service. Like, we didn't have much money or anything like that. We couldn't give a lot, but she had a heart of service. Like, she would help people. She would give you the shirt off her back. And I believe I got that from her. So as that man helped me, I wanted to try to start doing the same thing while I was in prison with other people, the best of my ability. Sometimes the best thing I could do is just hear somebody, listen, and we chop it up and feel better afterwards. But that was a turning point while I was incarcerated that carried me out.
Wow, man. So you saw this guy's light in that dark place. And it's always like that. It's always somebody else whose light we see, we want to be like, or we want to follow. And they throw us a line and we find our own way, but they gave us a line somehow. And then, it's fascinating. Like, as you talked about working on your grief, the 20 years of grief, man, that really resonated with me because it's part of my own story as well. It's very reflective of my own story, working with my own pain, trauma, grief, and being able to come to terms with that, and just understanding how that makes me who I am. And sometimes what it makes me into is someone that is not someone other people want to be around, but until we do that work, then we can begin to heal and provide, I guess, light for someone else.
Pain in the purpose.
Yeah, man, that is it. Pain into purpose. I really dig that. Talk about recovery if you would, man. But first, let me just bounce back. I just gotta say thanks for sharing what you just did because that was just so profound, bruh. It's still moving through me. It's still moving through me. But yeah, talk about recovery if you could. And maybe how did recovery intersect with your understanding of incarceration and reentry?
So once me and that guy did our thing, man, I had about 2 years left on my bid, and I stayed in recovery. Like, part of my story is two. Now, out of 11 years I've been in recovery, 2 of those years come from behind the wall, and that ended up being some of the most important foundation that I built. My home plan coming out of prison was homelessness. I had no home plan. I didn't have nowhere to go. I was gonna come out with the clothes they give me from the clothes house, and something bigger than me, and which I choose to call God, line things up for me. And so, in Wilkes County, when I was ripping and running, we had no services here. There was nothing. Like, they locked you up. They locked you up. You detoxed in a cell. That was it. There was no services here. And so I had found out about this transitional house that popped up here in Wilkes, and 30 days prior to my projected release date. And when I left, there wasn't nothing like that here. And until I got the application, I filled that out. I'd never been to sober living, transitional house. I never tried anything like that. What I did know is my way and coming back and doing the same thing wasn't working for me.
Mm.
What I realized, Dr. Waleed, is I can survive with anything.
Yeah.
but I didn't know how to live. And
Yeah,
so
man.
I had to learn how to live. And
Mhm.
so I got accepted into this transitional house, and my probation officer, I always tell this story. My probation officer picked me up at the gate. I got transferred to our prison here in Wilkes. And he said, you want the good news or the bad news? I said, I just got out of prison, sir. There ain't no bad news. And he said, you're right. He said, the good news is you're out of prison. The bad news is you're going back. And man, and luckily I had that 2 years of recovery,
Yeah.
right, coming out that gate, because most time I'd have said some slick stuff back to him.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, all right, man. And so he took me to this transitional house. It was a small house on a corner in downtown. I was the second guy there.
Mm.
It was brand new.
Okay.
Uh, Put me on house arrest. Made life challenging for me coming
Mm.
out. And the difference is that 2 years of foundation. I was willing to take suggestions. I was willing to listen to anybody who tell me to how to live outside the way I knew how to live.
Yes,
And,
sir.
and and I did that, and it was challenging. I had a $40 gate check and the clothes they give me, and I had to go through some things. The difference this time, every time I come out of prison or jail, I came out trying to put the world back together. Right, like I was sincere about that. I got kids. I want a relationship with my kids. I had caused family some harm, and I wanted to build them relationships back. I needed my license. All the stuff that we lose in the chaotic of addiction, I wanted back, and I couldn't never get it done on my timeline. And so I went back to surviving. I went back to hustling and doing dope because I knew how to do that. The difference was this time is I was focusing on the man and trying to put him back together a little bit at a time in hopes that the world's gonna fall into place.
Yeah.
And it has, and it did a little bit at a time, but that was a process, and I couldn't put no expectations on that process. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
For me,
Mhm.
I had to do what's right each day. I had to check my integrity of who I am as a person and my recovery. I had to be mindful of people I was around, which is positive people, people I call, in my sense, a recovery community.
Mhm.
And shortly after that, I got a job, man. I made $7.25 an hour. This is in 2016, right?
Yeah.
And so I called it a sawmill on steroids. Like, it was horrible, horrible job. But I went through that process, and eventually, I was asked to be a house manager of this transitional house because I'd already started finding value in supporting people in prison. And so as people come into this transitional house, I was just trying to connect and be that person, for them to lean on or talk to or whatever that looked like for them. And because it helped me, what I mean? It helped me trying to help them. And so I was asked to be a house manager. I knew nothing about running a transitional house. I knew very little about being on the outside and what recovery looked like. But I took the opportunity. The job didn't pay hardly anything, but it gave me free rent, and I took that opportunity. I run with it,
Right on.
and that leads into Wilkes Recovery.
Nice. Nice. And I'm thinking, man, as you're talking, two things really stood out. And one was trust the process, just getting the process. You said I started working on the man. I wasn't worried about getting the things. And so there's a scripture that I read years ago. I think it's attributed to Christ. And he said something to the effect that seek ye first the kingdom of God. All these things will be added unto you. And I think somewhere else in this scripture, he was known as saying, the kingdom of God is within. And so, again, you were developing that, which is most important. And then all those things that you lost, they were added plus
Plus,
some. Yeah, because you trusted the process. It makes me think about how momentum carries us when we prepare ourselves and we have our mind right, we have our intentions right, and we have whatever credentials we need for the undertaking, be it lived experience or degrees or certifications or whatever. But we trust the process. And when
yeah,
we have the right mind and doing the right thing, momentum carries us to the right place. I really think that. And you illustrated that.
For sure.
And so I hope other people who might hear this, who are coming out of prison or have folks coming home from prison, will understand that the formula is simple. You just got to get ready and you got to be right about it. And you got to first prepare yourself and then get, again, whatever life skills you need to make it happen.
For sure.
Because it can happen. All of us are capable.
Everybody.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody.
Well, some people are just stuck, and maybe they haven't found the right map or their GPS isn't working or they got a flat or something, but people are stuck, but everybody is capable, you
Yes.
know, until they blow the engine, you
That's
know?
right. That's right.
Yeah, so right on, man. So tell me this, because we're about halfway through our time together, but can you talk a little bit about how Wilkes Recovery Revolution supports people returning to society after incarceration?
Yeah. I'll pick up there kind of where I left off.
Yeah.
I become a house manager in 2016. We turned Wilkes Recovery Revolution into a nonprofit. People didn't talk about substance use or mental health in this county. So there was a lot of advocacy work that had to go into what we was trying to create. And we had a transitional house, and that was it. They didn't know about sober living here. They didn't want those people near them. And so there was a lot of work to be done, a lot of boots on the ground work that has to be done. Fast forward to today, like Wolf Recovery Revolution has 12 unique programs that we call our recovery ecosystem. And 4 of them are transitional houses. We house 43 people. We got a recovery center that is a walk-in recovery center during the day, open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, that is staffed by lived experience and peer supports.
Hmm.
We've got a harm reduction program, which is an SSP, or an exchange program that we meet people where they are that are still currently in active addiction. We got a farm program. We got a Will Fresh Mobile Market. We got a Hope Warriors. So we got 12 programs. The one I was talking about in the beginning was Cameron Ridge, which is a treatment center.
Hmm.
All those programs, I think when people do this work, the main thing we got to do is listen to the people we serve.
Hmm.
Right? We must lift our voices up to the highest. We got to take care of ourselves. There's value in the people doing the work. I'm not trying to take that from us, but we can't ever quit listening to the people we serve. And then as you see the gaps in your community, you create programs to fill them gaps, to bridge those gaps. A lot of them in the beginning was gaps that I had and that the executive director had, right? That we knew we needed in our journey. But for me, reentry, very passionate about ultimately because of my lived experience. Our transitional house, we take people from all over the state out of prison, provide them a safe, structured environment. For them, we provide transportation. We don't have no transportation services here in our county, so we provide transportation, of course, back and forth in meetings, church, work, probation appointments, any kind of major appointment. We do
That's a
that.
big deal.
Yeah, when they get out, if it's the ID or the social security card and all that, we should be past that now, but it still happens. That's the first thing we do to try to get that form and expedite that so they can get out here and do the thing. I go into the jails myself. Took me 5 years to get in these jails. They don't even let preachers in our jails, right? And so we talk about a lot of advocacy and a lot of hard work for me to get in these jails because right now it's me as a mental health provider and it's lawyers. And so ultimately, I go there about twice a week, couple hours each day, meet with people, try to do some diversions, whether that's come out of jail to our sober living or avoid prison and come to our sober living. So that's some stuff we're doing reentry. I'm big in we got a prison. Our prison here in Wilkes County is North Wilkesboro Prison is the biggest work release prison in the state. We house 270 individuals, and a majority of them go out to work. I built a great relationship. It took me 3 years to get back into prison after I got out. 4 years, excuse me. I had to be off probation for a year before I could go back in. And I go over there once, twice a week. I do host a meeting in there, but I also speak in their reentry class. I'm getting ready to do that today after this.
Okay.
And then I get on the yard a little bit, man. I get on the yard
Oh,
and
that's dope.
do support. And ultimately, If people want to come to our organization, to our sober living, then that's great. But
Mm.
some people want to go back home. And so
Yeah.
I support them on making sure that they got a home or whatever it is they need to, or to connect them to a peer support in their county or close as I can to them. And make sure when they come out that gate, somebody's there, hopefully
So,
with their probation officer.
yeah, that's so important.
Yeah.
So tell me this, man, because you were, it sounded like you were heading in this direction where I'm thinking, which was what message would you give someone who's freshly released from prison and they're struggling to find their footing?
What you said, you know, don't put expectations on timelines of when life is supposed to come to you. Focus on yourself. Know your worth. Know
Mm.
your worth. Know that you belong at any table, regardless of your past. We stigmatize and we're called convicts and we're called felons and we're called offenders and we're called all these things throughout life. And that sticks to us. And so we feel less than, and it is hard. We all know about reentry, how, getting a job and just navigating that whole system, how it's challenging. But you can do it. It can be done. Know your worth. Take your time. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to be still and process everything. Work on the man or work on the woman, whatever that may be. Work on the self,
Mm.
and everything will, everything else will fall into place. And what I say, God's time. It ain't my time. My time don't work out too well. In God's time, things will fall back together. And just know you belong exactly where you're at.
Yeah. Yeah. You dropped some universal gems, and what really stood out for me was stillness.
Mm,
Gotta be still sometime.
yeah.
Gotta listen to yourself. Gotta take care of yourself. So, two last things. And the one thing is, knowing what you know now, got some gray hair in your face, you know,
Uh-huh.
got some war stories to tell,
Mhm.
got some cracks and creaks and aches and places you used to didn't have. Now that you're older,
Yeah.
what would you tell a young Jeff?
That is possible. Most of my life, I had given up. You know what I mean? I was a baller, man. I was an athlete in high school, and I had some great opportunities. And even at that time, I didn't know my value. I didn't really know who I was.
Mhm.
That recovery, this journey of life, is a process. Every failure is an opportunity. Every struggle is a chance for growth.
Mm.
Um, that is life. You know what I mean? Um, Take time, love yourself. You know what I mean? I didn't love myself for a long time. And,
Mhm.
and, and to love yourself, you know what I mean? For us to be able to love people, we got to love ourselves internally.
True
Uh,
enough.
for us to be able to be good to people, we got to be good to ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Um,
Yeah.
I have insecurities, and sometimes that scared little kid comes out that was bullied every now and then, right?
Mm.
I've got tools and a way to process that today. Life is beautiful. You're loved. Your integrity of who you are is important as a person. You know what I mean? Just don't talk about it, be about it.
That's right.
Um, you know what I mean? And you'll do amazing things.
Yeah, that's powerful, bro. That's powerful, and that's not only for young Jeff. That's for all the folks who are listening who are trying to figure it out. Those are words to live by, and many of those words echo my same sentiments and thoughts. And that's how I've been able to stay out of prison for over 25 years. I think it's been about 28 years now. You
Yeah.
know, the guy told me once, Jeff. He said, "Yo, man, I was getting out. I was like 28 years old. I had done 8 years." He said, "Go out there, man, and do 25 years to life in the community." I looked at him. He said, "Yeah, in the community, man, in the neighborhood. Do 25 to L on the streets, man." I said, "All right, I got you." And he put that battery in my back, and it's still burning. It ain't gonna burn out till the casket drop. So how about this, bro? Before we close up, and then we'll close. Thinking about your journey, if you could capture your journey in a catchphrase or a title, a saying or a phrase or something, what would that be? what would it say?
Remain true to yourself. Always speak up, speak out, and speak well. You too are important. You know what I'm saying? Your life can be better than you could ever imagine as it is today. You know what I'm saying? That we as people put people first. Always put people first. You know what I mean? Be good to your community, be good to people, being intentional with your words. Love life.
Wow. Yeah, man. Yo, man, you dropped a lot of good jewels. You reminded me of something one of my mentors used to say, which is you can evolve beyond your wildest imagination.
Yeah,
It's possible.
it's possible.
Jeff, man, was there anything else that I didn't cover that you want to drop? Maybe how folks can reach you, your socials, anything like that?
Yeah, you can definitely reach me at JWalker at WilkesRecoveryRevolution.com. That's my email. I'm on Facebook. It's Jeff Walker. On LinkedIn, it's Jeff Walker. Wilkes Recovery Revolution, www.wilkesrecoveryrevolution.com. Reach out to me. I want to hear you. I want to walk through it with you. And we together and do it.
Right on, man. And with that, we're going to call it a wrap, bro.
Dr. Waleed, thank you very much for having me on Prison of Promise. Appreciate the work you're doing and the advocacy you're doing and connecting with people much like myself and lifting us up.
Right on, man. Each one reach one, each one teach one.
I love it.
All right, brother. I'll be in touch.
All right, take care, Dr. Waleed.
All right. Thanks. Peace. Hey, y'all. Thanks for hanging out with me for another episode of the Prison of Promise podcast. If you or someone you know would like to share their Prison of Promise story on this platform, please hit me up at drcraigwaleed@gmail.com. I'll spell it for you. That's DrCraigWaleed@gmail.com. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.